Okay everyone, Marco is here, the author of Terrain Mixer. This video will be a part of my interview for 80 level. I would like to explain from the start, for those who haven't used Terrain Mixer before, what it is and how to use it properly. So here we have the Terrain Mixer workspace. This is a specially designed workspace for the Terrain Mixer, and we have two available. So one is this with the 3D viewport, where we have the properties menu on the right, which is pretty big, but don't be afraid, it's very simple to understand how all the sliders are used, and I'll do that. I'll explain it in a second. And then we also have Terrain Mixer plus nodes workspace. So here, when I work here, I usually change the views here. So most of the time I have this like a game map preview. So if I want to jump to a certain node, I would probably just select it here and press dot on the numpad, and zoom it like this. And sometimes I switch this big one and this one on the lower left side, where you see the terrain as well. So I usually keep it from the top view, but sometimes if I want to preview something without going to the Terrain Mixer workspace, I would probably do something like this and preview it. So let's move on. Wrong editor. Okay, so first let me explain how everything works and what's the concept behind it. So Terrain Mixer is a tool that should help you generate realistic and abstract terrain. That being said, it's not one-click solution where you would say like, okay, I want to have, I don't know, like Grand Canyon, and then you have a Grand Canyon. It doesn't work like that. So first, let me explain the menu on the right. So a few months back, we didn't have a menu. Everything was controlled inside of the node editor. Now with this menu, you can do a lot of the operations here while previewing the changes in the viewport. So and I think this really speeds up the workflow. These first 6 sliders here, okay, we can break this into groups. So we have 3 groups here on this menu. So we have these first 6 sliders here, and these are used for mixing. Then we have additional 4 which are also used for mixing, but actually they switch between the HEIGHTMAP source. I'll get back to that later. And then we have the second group, or the third, where you have this clip, mirror, power, rotation, and scale sliders. And this is actually the third group, and this is repeating for every input. We have 4 of them, and this is repeating, so 4 times this is repeating all the way down to where we have scatter master group. And this is actually the 5th input, and you will see how it works. So we have 4 inputs. This first slider mixes inputs 1 and 2. So we just move it to the left and move it to the right. This second slider provides blending modes for that first mix. So you can just click like this and have all the blending modes. If you want to preview the blending modes, right here you will see just numbers, but if you go to the Terrain Mixer nodes, and if you go to the mixer, I believe, I confused myself a bit. Just let me check. Yeah, if you go here, you will see the current blending mode. So for example, if I would enable the menu, the properties menu here, and if I would go through these blending modes, you will see how they're changing here. At least for me, it doesn't really matter, you know, these names don't, I mean, I do understand what math operations are performing here, but while I work, you know, I'm kind of freestyling and I don't really care, you know, what's the name of it. I just look for something that I like, and I already have memorized, you know, what does each number do in my head. So anyways, let's move back. So it's the same for the third and fourth input. We have these two sliders. So one is for mixing, and we can preview this better if we go to the C slider and move it all the way to the right. So all the way to the right, it shows the mix between 3 and 4, you see. And if we go all the way to the left on the C slider, you would be previewing mix between 1 and 2. And since this is like this, I can do it like this, so you see better what I'm talking about. And I guess you have figured by now that if I go here and move it towards the middle, the C slider, I would mix all the inputs together. And of course I also have the blending options for them as well. So now this switch sliders switch between the sources, the HEIGHTMAP sources for each of the inputs. So let me move this C slider all the way to the left. Let me reset it to default value, this blending, and I'll do the same here. So if you want to change the, for example, the input number 1, if you want to change the HEIGHTMAP source, you can do this. Go to the input 1, switch 1, and do this. So the source is now changed. Of course, you would know which source is that, and you can learn about it by going here where we have this switch node groups. I mean, you will rarely go here, but when you want to change the source, you would go here, choose first or the second one, for example this one, and I don't know, maybe go to this folder here and pick this, and now you have a new source. So now when you have your mix selected, I'll add a bit more of the input to here. So when you have your mix in the scene, you can perform other operations from this slider, and these are you can do clipping from the bottom, like so. You can do clipping from the top, like so. You can mirror it on the x-axis, so you get some really interesting effects here. You can mirror it on the y-axis, so you can, of course, you can combine on the y-axis, and you can mirror it on the z-axis as well, which actually gives you a negative value or the hole in the ground, so some sort of a crater. You also can increase the power, the strength. So you would do this with this slider, like so. And you can also rotate, like so, and of course scale. So you can do this same operations for any of the 4 inputs and their mixes. Now, if we would want to break this landscape a bit, we can go down. We can do this 3 different ways, I think. So one of those ways is to activate the scatter master. So you can go here and you get this kind of effect. Now, the thing that is happening, actually the scatter master is introducing the new HEIGHTMAP source, which is actually the identical one that I use for this mountain. So, and this was the source for the input 1. So I could either change it to something like this, or go back and get that old HEIGHTMAP source that I had previously. But I can continue working like this and do that later. So here we can, of course, do some adjustments to this. So let me go from the top towards the bottom. So let's see what's possible. So you can, of course, decide like how much of the scatter master will be in the scene by moving this slider, this activate slider. So you can go all the way to the 1, or just, you know, halfway there. You can also change the blending modes. So something like this. Number 4 is the default ones, but you can change it, go fast through all of them. By the way, if you want to go to default value, what you do is just hover over the slider and press backspace, and then it sets the value to the default. Sets the default value. Let's move this back. Then what you can do, you can of course clip it also from the bottom, like so. And this actually raises the whole terrain. And you can also clip it from the top, like so. We can leave it like this. Now you can also add a bit of a power to it, but before that, let me just show you the invert. So you can do something like this, and you can then add a bit of power to it, like so. Let me go back with this invert operation, although I do like this holes. Looks interesting. So I usually do screenshots every now and then. I move it all the way to 7, and then I do a screenshot. Okay, so let's see what else we have. We have rotation. You see, rotation, scale, then we also have scatter, if you want even more of those peaks in the scene, so you would add a bit more scatter here. You have noticed probably this way you can also generate some sort of, you know, canyons. Okay, then we have we can shift it to X and Y axis. So that's nothing new. You have seen this already. And something called smudge, which kind of distorts these scattered areas. So you would go here and do something like this. So it kind of distorts and stretches everything. So for example, if you need some sort of a natural labyrinth for your camera animation, you know, you can do something like this. It gives pretty interesting results. And of course, in the end, we have some sort of the softening, like so, which can also give you a pretty decent, pretty nice look of the terrain. Okay, let me deactivate this. Now there are more ways of breaking the terrain, and I'll show you at least one more while we're still here. But before I do that, this last operation that I did, the one before the last one, the smudging, there's something similar that you can do for any of the 4 inputs that we mentioned at the beginning of the video. So if you would go here, and there where the HEIGHTMAPS frame is, with the 4 groups named switch 1, 2, 3, and 4, you have something called DISTORTer, and this basically does the same thing. So to be honest, I forgot which input is active now. I think we have the most influence from the input 2, so I'll try to distort it a bit. Oh yes, so you see this. Remove this. Now I want to add a bit more height to this overall terrain, so I'll see what I can do about that. Let's go to the nodes and move all the way where masking is. Since we are here already, before I show you the masking, I want to show you something else, and this is the canyonizer and cascader. So let's maybe start with the cascader, and I'll just rotate this top view to the perspective view. And with the cascader, you can add cascades or stairs to your mountain or cliff or whatever. So what we should do, this value exists between 0.9 and 1. So just press shift and click and, you know, do this. So you see something is happening here. You can set it to 0.913 or 4, whatever. And then we go here where it says cascades, also shift click and move it towards 5 or something. So you see how we get, you can go even further, how you get this sort of interesting look, you know, maybe somewhere from the Wild West. Of course, rocks and cliffs there are not pink with some green sand, but you get the idea. Okay, and canyonizer gives you the option to create some sort of abstract canyons. Let's see. So we can plug it here where it says plug here. Just drag to this point and you get this. And of course, since it's a lower subdivision, it's a low subdivision level, so you see this extrudes, you know, the polygons extruded. But don't worry about it. When you play with it, you will understand how to solve it. And so here you can also, you know, play with the scale, which increases the number of the canyons or channels, and also the influence. This gives a bit more like contrast to it. And of course, this also works with this previously mentioned cascades options, and it kind of helps you break the terrain. And of course, if we go to the 3D view, you will see better when we add more resolution to the terrain mesh, that it will look a lot better. So now you see it's like really, you know, from something very simple you get like a really complex terrain. Okay, enough with that. Let's plug this back here and remove the cascades. Now, as I mentioned, I want to show you the masking. We can leave this in a perspective view. I want to show you the masking. So first, we have the image mask. We'll go through that, and then we'll go to the ellipse mask, which is, the operations are almost identical, available operations almost identical. The difference is that the image mask will give you, most of the time it will give you more details. Now, what I suggest when you're preparing your image mask, try and make it, you know, like everything that's important, leave it in the center of the image. So all the height information should be in the center, and I suggest that you have edges and area towards the edges black, you know, so it doesn't affect the terrain much. But you know, you can do whatever you want. What I use just one of the images that are used for the inputs. I also use them for masking. So okay, so if we go here, here's where the image is, and I just picked this one, which is in the folder named HEIGHTMAPS 2. So to activate masking, you would go here, and you see this hole. Now, because I'm using image that's actually HEIGHTMAP generated in the, I use for generating height maps, I usually actually always use Gaia, Squad Spinner Gaia. It's my favorite software. I can also generate mask inside of Terrain Mixer, but since it's a tool that I know everything about, it's just like no fun for me to create it here. So I like working in Gaia for height maps, because Gaia is like a professional tool for generating terrains. So really useful. I mean, it's not that expensive. It's not expensive at all compared to what you can do with it. So actually it's a bargain. So I suggest everyone who is like really interested to become a pro in terrain generation to get a copy of Gaia. Anyways, so we have this mask activated now, and what you can do, you can okay, let's go from the top. So you can change the depth. Okay, let me lower the subdivision to 3, which will help us work faster. So you can lower, you can control the depth. You see this. You can clamp it from the top. So this is not clipping it, it's kind of more like putting pressure on the terrain. So I kind of like this. then what you can do, you can scale it on the X and Y axis. So scale X like so, and scale Y. Please don't fall asleep, because I might. Then we can move or shift the mask left and right, or X and Y axis. We can rotate it, and you'll see this better if I scale it like this, and can do this, rotate it. Then we have something named cut influence. So basically what you're doing, you're breaking the mask, and just to get like more interesting terrain and to maybe even generate some sort of canyons. So we'll increase this to 1, or any value between 0 and 1, and go to this one named cut apart. So you get something like this, which looks pretty interesting. Then what you can do is do random cuts with this cut random. It says rando, but it's random, trust me. So you can add more cuts here. So yeah, it's really fast way of generating this sort of Wild Westish or Martian terrain. Then let's move to power, same as before. You're like increasing the strength of the effect, in this case mask effect, and then sharpness, same thing. This power and sharpness, you know, kind of sometimes change the role, so you'll get used to it, you know, just play with it a bit. Okay, let's just check this in the 3D view with a bit more subdivision levels. This is what I like doing. Okay, I think this looks pretty nice. By the way, if interested, I'm working on the 1080 Ti GPU, so if you have anything better than that, and I'm sure you have, you won't get any, you won't be waiting for this cycles samples to clean. So yeah, I think this looks nice. I'll even do a screenshot of it. So now we can check this ellipse mask, which is totally like a procedural thing, and same as before, you know, you can control the depth of the mask, you can clamp it, you can scale on X and Y axis, you can shift left and right, up and down, X, Y. You can rotate, although this is not so visible as before. I'll do this and then rotate a bit. Then you can, of course, the same thing, the cut influence, cut part. Now, since this mask has you know, it's basically a sphere, not a sphere, sorry. It's basically a circle, you know, with some gradient. And of course it has a bit of a noise added, but you see that the cut is kind of cleaner, you know, so it's more like washed. But this still looks very interesting, I believe. So it really depends, you know, how detailed you want your result to be, or how stylized the end result needs to be, you know. Just play with it and you will see. Okay, I think this is it when it comes to masking. So let's do this. I'm not sure. I thought I would show you the baking process of the height map. Not sure if I should. But since it's like a really fast setup, I might show you how the baking works as well. So let me just bring this original mask back. I'll remove this cut influence, scale this down a bit. I kind of like this crater looking. It reminds me of some sort of the, you know, like island. This could be interesting for some concept art. Okay, so when baking, you would go to this 3D view, press 7. Just to prepare yourself, because you will view it from the top. Go here, change the camera to this ortho camera for baking. Then press 0, of course, go to the camera view. Then go to the resolution and decide what your resolution would be. Set 1K for now, and that's it. Now you're done with setting up the camera, and all that's left is to, you know, render it. And yes, you create the height map just by rendering it, and you can set the samples all the way to the 1. It will work just fine. But before you press F12, what you would do, you would go here. Detach or disconnect this displacement and color, and plug in this one. So you see, now if you go here, you will see the result that you will get after you render it. So let's render it. Press F12. Not sure if you see this, but the window popped out. You're probably not seeing this because I have a screen recording set to the Blender window, and this is the new window, but I'm just previewing the map that's being created. It's 1K, so it took less than 20 seconds to create. So if you would set it to, I don't know, like 8K, which I usually do, you would get the map in just a few minutes. So yeah, and that's everything. I knew I forgot something, so this is the bonus content at the end of the video. I just want to show you how you can, you know, change the color of the terrain fast. Now, the reason why I'm previewing the terrain in this red and green color is just because it renders faster, because it's a very simple material, simple shader. Here in the node 3, so here you have these 2 nodes now. Before it was only 1. You have 2 nodes where I have set some simple you know, shader simple color inside of it, just so I can work faster, as I mentioned. And if you want to preview it with, you know, like more like a rock color and sand or snow, which I usually use, this is what you would do. You would plug this here, and you would plug this here. And now when you go here to 3D view, you can see how it looks. Okay, now we have it. So something like this. Okay, and this is a good opportunity to mention that new height maps will be added to the package in the future, and so you'll have besides this 9 available now, or 10 available now, you have at least 5 or 10 more in the near future. So yeah, take care and buy for real this time. Cheers.